Hi, my name is Puck. What it says on the tin, I will be talking about the Silmarillion. What you just heard was the Blind Guardian 90s power metal concept Silmarillion album, Nightfall in Middle-earth, and I very much hope that this whole video doesn't get taken down because of copyright stuff, because I used that. But yeah, I will be talking about the Silmarillion. My credentials are that I am a nerd and I physically cannot shut up about this. So you will get this unhinged multi-part PowerPoint presentation about the Silmarillion. It was originally made for my bestest friend who was technically interested but didn't want to read the whole Silmarillion, so the only thing that I could do in that moment was, of course, make a 280 slide PowerPoint presentation explaining the whole Silmarillion to her so that I can send memes about it to her, which I did. And now I have this great thing that I have created, and now I will share it with the world. So this is who the target audience is, people who technically are interested but don't want to read the whole Silmarillion, or maybe are looking for a less serious easy way to get into the whole thing. So that is what this is there for. I tried to cut out most of my slides and slides of rambling about my favorite characters. I also cut out the German-specific jokes, or at least most of them, and I also cut out most of the inside jokes between me and my friend, but not all of them. He, for example, is still there. Not specifically he, but this illustration of him by Angus McBride, because I think this illustration of him absolutely slays. This is Teleporno, better known as Celeborn to some, Galadriel's husband. But in my heart and in Tolkien's own words, he made that up, okay? This is not my fault. Tolkien himself gave Celeborn the Quenya name Teleporno, and it's the funniest thing in the world to me, so he is here. He is like Elven Clippy. He is here for fun facts. So if you see this guy in this PowerPoint presentation, he will be telling you fun facts, ramblings that aren't necessarily necessary, but necessary to me personally. So, some more housekeeping real quick. First off, as you may have heard, my first language is not English, so forgive me if I do anything wrong. I hope my accent is not too much. You will have to deal with it. So each of these PowerPoint presentations will be uploaded to a Google Drive or something that I still have to make, so you can look at the PowerPoint just by itself. When you have downloaded the PowerPoint, you can just click on any fan art that you see, and it will directly take you to the artist. Of course, the artist will also always be like just written under the art. Also, this is your warning that this will be oversimplified and biased, because it will be biased because it is mine and I made it for fun. So of course there will maybe be some more focus on my favorite characters and favorite events, and maybe less focus on events and characters that aren't my favorite, but I'm doing my best to show you everything regardless. It will also be oversimplified because, listen, man, it's already 280 slides long. If we want to get through this one way or another, we will have to oversimplify things. I'm very sorry if I oversimplify things that are dear to your heart. Believe me, it hurts my soul as well, but we have to get through this somehow, so it will be oversimplified. If, however, I actually say something that is straight up wrong and not just oversimplified, let me know. As a nerd, my favorite hobby is correcting people on Tolkien lore, so I will have to deal with it if I do something wrong and I get corrected. Please let me know. Last one. My typos are a stylistic choice, and I will not be taking any criticism about them. Let's go! Alright, let's start with the basics. So, what is this? What is the Silmarillion? It is that book right there, or this book right here. I'm showing it to you because I made it prettier since I took that photo. So, the Silmarillion is the name of this book, but it consists of multiple parts, 3 parts, and only the second part is like the Silmarillion. At first we have the Ainulindale and the Valaquenta, which is basically the creation myth of that world, and like a little bit of a rundown of all of the deities and stuff that you have. Then the second part is like the Quenta Silmarillion, the actual Silmarillion. Quenta means story and Silmarillion means of the Silmarils, so you have the story of the Silmarils. And that is what I say when I mean the whole fucking Silmarillion. I mean the Quenta Silmarillion. Maybe I will also make a PowerPoint about the appendix to the Silmarillion, which is point 3, the fall of Numenor and the creation of the Rings of Power, and a little bit of the Third Age, but mostly the Second Age, which I like to call Sauron's Hot Girl Summer. This right here. But we'll see how far I get with this one, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So why does this book exist? Tolkien has been like making up fairy stories forever and planned on putting them all in one book, and technically the Silmarillion should have been published together with the Lord of the Rings, but alas, that never happened. And the Silmarillion actually never got published while Tolkien was alive. It was published after his death, after his son Christopher Tolkien took all of these notes and different versions and gazillion little papers and stuff that his dad had left, and tried his best to kind of put them in a coherent story. That is also why there's a gazillion different versions of many stories and characters and names and stuff, because Tolkien never finished it, and canon is whatever you want it to be. There's so many versions. And the published Silmarillion is one version, but there's many others that are, in my mind, equally as canon. The thing is, the Silmarillion also exists in universe. It is a mytho-history. It has a little bit of a development of starting out very mytho and becoming more and more history as it goes on. It is like a collection of elvish tales and lore, maybe mixed in with human lore, and cosmology is unclear. And it is a collection of writings from different historians. Tolkien made up different historians who wrote that stuff down, and all of these different writings from different historians were translated and put into one book by Bilbo fucking Baggins. And that's what he was up to while he was in Rivendell. He wrote the Silmarillion. And also The Hobbit, I guess. But yeah, that is what it is in universe. So like, in short, what's in there? Why is this over there? It shouldn't be over there. I wish I could drag it. Anyways, it's basically the First Age and what led up to it, aka Morgoth ruins everything and Feanor is being a dramatic bitch about it. Hello? Can I please go to the next slide, please? So next up, I want to give you a little bit of an idea, a little bit of a timeline, so you know where we're at time-wise. Also, my light is terrible. I cannot look at that. So here you can see a timeline, a very simple one. If you know Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, then you are over there. This is where that happens. As you can see, what we will be talking about is before that, and what we will be talking about in this session specifically is this bit. That's quite a big bit. We're actually going to talk about a lot today, but that is because I want to get on with the story, you want to get on with the story. Let's hurry up. But yeah, as you can see, the First Age and what led up to it. So, here we have the chapters that we will be talking about today. We're starting off with the mytho part of the mytho history, so we can get on with the history of it all. So, terminology. I swear we will get to the story in a bit. We need to get the groundwork laid down first. Arda or Arda. Sometimes I put in effort when pronouncing the names and sometimes I don't. Depends on how much fun it is to say. But Arda or Arda is the world. The world as a whole is called Arda, and Middle-earth is just one bit of it. Eru Ilúvatar is the capital G god, like the monotheist. Tolkien was super Catholic. There is one big god who is in charge of everything else. There are also the Valar, who are a pantheon of gods. I know that sounds weird when I just said that there's technically a monotheist god. Don't worry too much about it. He's like in charge of everything, but there is still like a pantheon of gods, basically. There's also Maiar, who are under the Valar. They're like angels. They're in service of at least one of the Valar. For example, Gandalf, Sauron, Saruman, Balrogs, they are all Maiar. And a name for the Valar and the Maiar as a whole are the Ainur. Another important guy is Melkor, aka Morgoth. These are the two canon names. I too like to call him Margot or the Most Goth or Silm Shady because I make stupid jokes like that. He's basically the devil. Okay, but now we're getting started. So I told you that we are kind of skipping the creation myth and all that stuff and talking about all of the different Valar. You will get to know the important ones when we get to them. Right? But basically, the way the world has been created is that the capital G god and the Ainur have had a jam session. They were singing together. That is the Ainur Lindale. They are singing together, and through that, the world is created in simple terms. A little bit more complicated terms is that the vision of how the world will be is created while they're singing, but they still have to go there and build it themselves. But basically, it's good enough to know that the world was created because they sang. While they were singing, Melkor, if you remember the devil, has added some jazzy solos, death metal, I don't know, something that no one else liked into that music. He has sowed discord into the music, and that is how evil is introduced into the world. Important bit right there. Nobody liked his little improv session, which is honestly rude. I am sure he put a lot of effort into it, but nobody liked it, and they fought, and Melkor went to sulk somewhere. The world, as they have it, so like all of the Ainur that decide to join into that world, into that whole world program, they go to Arda and they start building stuff. They camp out right here in an island that is in the middle of a lake that is in the middle of Middle-earth. And it's all very symmetrical, as you can see. I hate symmetry. This is terrible. Bad world design. As you can see, they have light. They have one big lamp in the north and one big lamp in the south that make light for them. Okay. And they chill on that middle island. They go about their different duties. Sometimes they party, sometimes they build things, whatever. That is what the world looks like so far. But then Melkor is having a bad day. So Melkor ruins everything, as part 1 was the music thing. So he destroys the lamps because he's one of those kids that like to stomp on other kids' sandcastles for fun. He actually stomped very hard. He stomped so hard that the whole world's geography is changed. As you can see, this is what it looks like now. Not symmetrical anymore. So the Valar are a little bit creeped out, and they flee to Aman, or Valinor, the west, that you may be familiar with if you know Lord of the Rings and stuff. There's now 2 big inland seas where the lamps used to be. And just like a fun fact on the side, the world is still flat, and it will remain flat for 2 whole ages. World is flat in the Silmarillion, world is round in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Stuff happens. All elves are flat earthers, and they're right. But the other people for whom the world is round, they're also right. This map is by Tolkien himself. So, the years of the trees. It's called trees because the years of the trees because, well, there's trees now. Remember how those lamps were destroyed? They made trees instead. Now that they're in Aman, in Valinor, the continent is called Aman. The place where they're at is called Valinor. They have trees now that make light. Look, I drew them very professionally. They glow, as you can see. One is called Laurelin, the other one Telperion. And the count of time starts now. Before that, we had no actual dates or years. It was just mytho and no history. A little bit more history happening, you know. Important to know, this is not where the first age starts. It gets confused a lot. This is not where the first age starts. The first age, anyways. So, they hoard all of the light for themselves. The Valar, I mean. So Middle-earth still has only starlight. The tree light is only in the west. So the Valar are waiting now. They're pretty much done with making the world, and they know that the firstborn, the elves, are gonna wake up somewhere at some point, but not specifically where or when, so they just wait with Antissa. And Aule gets bored. Aule is the god of like craftsmanship and creating things in general, smithing, and he gets real impatient waiting for the elves to wake up. So he wants to make his own little creatures. And he creates the dwarves. they are supposed to be kind of like the elves, but he doesn't really remember what they were supposed to look like, that specifically. Also, since Melkor has now been in Middle-earth and wreaking havoc, Aule went the safe route and made the dwarf super sturdy and resistant. So, like, the dwarves are not only, like, super resistant physically, but also mentally. It's hard to corrupt them, you know? So he makes his little dwarves, right? But God pops in and is like, you know you're not allowed to do that, because only I, capital G, God, can make creatures actually alive. These 7 little guys here are only puppets. And Aule is like, oh, sorry, I know. And he goes to smash the 7 little dudes with this big, big hammer. And God is like, calm thy tits, my son. Look, the 7 dwarves, they are afraid of you. And Aule is like, oh my god, you gave them actual life? Thanks, Dad. I love my 7 little dudes. And God is like, okay, so you can keep them, but they are only allowed to wake up after my firstborn kids have woken up. So the dwarves have to go to sleep, and they're only allowed to wake up after the elves have woken up. And Aule is like, cool, okay. And that is what happens. Time for trees. So Aule has a wife, Yavanna. She is like a nature goddess. And she notices correctly that the dwarves, because they are Aule's little guys, and he is all for creation and stuff, they will destroy a lot of her trees. And she loves the trees a lot. And Aule is like, well, but everyone's gonna do that because everyone's gonna need the wood. And she's like, that's not gonna make it better. Long story short, the Ents exist so that trees can have something that can punch and speak and walk to protect them. And, I mean, that's what they're doing. Here's a very, very funny German joke, which is the Zauberer von Lützerath, the Mud Wizard of Lützerath. I feel like he had his little moment of fame internationally. He's amazing. You should Google the Mud Wizard of Lützerath. He's a guy who trying to protect a forest, pushed a cop into the mud, and it looks very funny. Patient. There it is. Woohoo! They're elves now. Party. So finally, we got to the elves. I know, it took a while for a history book about the elves. So, they have finally woken up. Slept in a little bit, but I get it. I also like to sleep in. And they chill at that big lake where they all woke up. And they do things, they invent language. Important thing, always. Though Melkor does give them a hard time. Remember, they woke up somewhere in Middle-earth, and that is where Melkor still wreaks havoc. And around that time, also, the orcs are being created. In mockery of the elves, for sure. Out of elves, maybe? Who knows? Certainly not Tolkien. He didn't know either. He never made up his mind about that. Like, we have this very popular idea that the orcs were created by, like, torturing and twisting elves. And that is a version, for sure. But could also be something completely else. That's one of these things that Tolkien never made up his mind about. There are many versions of where orcs came from, how they work as a species, what their morals are. That's all very complicated. There are gazillion versions, and Tolkien never made up his mind about it. Who the fuck are these guys? So what happens is that the Valar now finally learn that the elves have woken up. And because they have noticed that the elves have woken up and that Melkor has given them quite the hard time, they now go to finally fight Melkor because he made the elves sad. And Melkor is imprisoned! Woo! The Valar imprison him, and he is out of the picture for now. Here's another tiny little fun fact that I have to mention, and that's that the stars were the very first thing that the elves have seen when they woke up, and that is why the elves are so into stars. And I think that is so cute, and I love that. What is this blank page doing? Ah, interesting. So, we have Melkor out of the picture. So the Valar still notice that even when with Melkor gone, Middle-earth is still kind of dangerous. He may be gone, but all of his scary creatures and orcs and other scary creatures are still in Middle-earth. So the Valar invite the elves to come to the west to live with them in safety. The thing is, all that the elves have seen so far of the Valar has been this one big fight with Melkor that totally shook their world. And I mean that literally. That is what the world looked like before. That is what the world looked like after they had fought and imprisoned Melkor. So the elves are understandably a little bit skeptical about that whole thing. So what they do is to send 3 ambassador elves to go and check out the West, see what it's like, see if it's worth the hype and stuff, and report back. And they do that. They come back and they're like, you will not believe this shit. It's amazing over there. They have light. Can you imagine? They have like trees that glow and shit. It's great. So a lot of the elves do in fact make their way from here. This is Cuivianen. This is where all of them woke up. Their way overland and over there into the west. Some stay there though, and on their way some elves like break from the group, different groups of elves happen, and PowerPoint needs to stop interrupting me. That's so rude. So we now have a lot of different groups of elves, right? Don't worry, you don't have to know all of them. As you can see, there are many ways to visualize all the different groups of elves. This is my favorite one, but don't worry, you don't have to know all of them. This won't be on the final exam. I will just tell you the most important ones, but generally I just want you to know that there's all of these different groups of elves now, because this is very important for Tolkien's Legendarium. This is like the whole reason that this world even exists, because Tolkien needed some little guys that speak all of the languages and dialects that he made up. The languages were first, the stories came second. So I think it's just important to know that all of these little guys are there. But I'm just gonna simplify this whole thing for you now, okay? Okay, so here simplified are just the important ones that you have to know about. Generally, the word Quendi just means elves. That is just the elven word for elf is Quendi. A lot of times you will read Eldar, though, instead of Quendi. Eldar are technically only those elves who started on the journey, like going westwards. Doesn't matter if they actually made it to the west or just broke off somewhere, but they tried. They tried to get into the west, and these are the Eldar. The thing is, we never hear anything again ever about those elves that did not try to go to the west. So, because all of the elves that we ever hear about are of the Eldar, Eldar often just gets used as a synonym for Quendi. So if you hear Eldar, it just means elves. Of the important groups that you have to know about are the Noldor and the Sindar. The Sindar are like the main, like the most important group that you will hear about those elves that did try to go to into the west, but just broke off somewhere along the way and did ultimately not get to Valinor. And of these 3 groups that you have that actually made it into the west, the Noldor are the most important ones to know about. They are the problem child who caused everything going on in the Silmarillion, which is tragic and terrible. I love that book. Yeah, we also have like the Vanyar, which are like the Golden Boys, and the Falmari, which are part of the Teleri. We will talk about why that happens. But yeah, generally, you have those that made it into the West, the most important ones being the Noldor, and those who tried but did not make it into the West, the most important ones there being the Sindar. Now, here we have Calaquendi, and behind me, Moriquendi, for those who did not make it. Oh wow, look, I actually made it a visual. I had a great transition in mind that I can't do now because I was so nice and made a visual for you. Just say that visually again, this is where all the elves woke up. They made their way westwards. Some, especially those that stayed behind in that little forested area there, are Sindar, and the Noldor are part of the elves that made it into the west. Now... Now, as I said, you now have the elves that made into the west and those that didn't, which you could call the Caliquendi and the Moriquendi. If you have a friend who is a Sindar elf, though, don't call him part of the Moriquendi, because would probably be seen as very offensive to them, because they don't want to be grouped in with the people who didn't even try to make it to the west. So they made up an extra word for that because, you know, you don't want to be rude. As you can see by Mr. Telepon over there and the big one in the background, this is absolutely not relevant to anything. I just think it's great that Tolkien made up stuff like this, of just like those, because that's so important to have like a language and a society feel alive, that you have words that are in use, words that are not in use anymore because of social factors and stuff. I love that kind of stuff. That's why I just had to talk about that. Now let me get to the rest. Now we will get on with the story, I swear. Look, we're getting on with the story. This is the next chapter. The chapter is called Of Thingol and Melian, so we will talk about Thingol and Melian. This is a beautiful art of Thingol and Melian. As you maybe remember, there's like, you have the Sindar and like a part of this big group called the Teleri stayed in Middle-earth and a part made it into the West. Why is that? Well, this chapter is the explanation for that. Their leader, one of their leaders, Elwë, who later is known as Thingol, so I will keep calling him Thingol so it's easier. Bro just got lost in the woods and met a Maya, and he just remained in love at the first sight, freeze frame, for centuries, literally centuries. They were just staring at each other. And yeah, like I said, the person he stared at for centuries in love is Melian, a Maya, so one of the angelic kind of beings. And they just stay in that forest. Like, when they're done staring at each other, they just stayed in that forest that they met in and founded the kingdom of Doriath, which is where most of the Sindar hang out and is, like, very important place. King Thingol and Queen Melian of Doriath. Things that you will hear about again, definitely. I know I said we're getting on with the story, but here's another thing that I just really want to talk about, and that is Círdan. You have seen him before if you watched The Lord of the Rings. That's what he looks like there. This is what he looks like in The Rings of Power. That dude. I have many thoughts about him. He's the oldest dude around in The Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings and stuff. Why is that? Well, the thing is, in the time that I just talked about, he was part of the people of King Thingol. And he technically, because, you know, he was on his way. He really wanted to go to Valinor. But Thingol, like I said, got lost in the woods, and he was gone for centuries. And this guy, Círdan, as a loyal man, loyal to his king, was searching for him, because, like I said, Middle-earth is dangerous, okay? Anything could have happened. And because he was searching for him, he missed the ferry to Valinor, which is very sad, and then he got, like, the Valar told him basically that he is to be the one to build ships and help people get into the West, and he is only allowed to go into the West once everyone who wanted to was already gone over there. Anyways, I just want to know what his face looked like when Thingol turned up centuries too late. Not deadly injured or like captured by orcs or anything. Whatever moved him to abandon his people. He just turns up with some iced coffee on Heelys hundreds of years late. And he's like, "Hey, Círdan, my guy, what's up? What are you still doing here? I got married. Can you believe it?" This is what I would have loved to see in The Rings of Power, but no, they did not do that, which is a shame. I really would have loved to see his face. Okay, I said we're getting on with the story. We're summarizing real quick, okay? We're summarizing. We have elves wake up over here. They walk this way. Some stay here. Some make it over there. The ones that make it over there are the Vanyar, the Falmari, and the Noldor. The most important guys. Speaking of, meet Feanor. Did you know that there are a lot of rock operas about the Silmarillion in Czech and Russian? There's also a Spanish musical. All of them are great. I can't say that I understand what's going on because I don't speak Czech, Russian, or Spanish very well. But it's great and wonderful. And this is exactly the kind of energy that anyone who were ever to portray Feyenoord needs to bring to the table. That is exactly the amount of drama that we need for this guy. Just so you know what you're getting into with him. Family trees! I love family trees. So, the one you already know is Finwë, because he is one of the 3 ambassador elves who were sent into the West and then came back, reported back, and then they went back into the West with their people. He is the king of the Noldor. Yay, you also know who the Noldor are. Look at you, learning. As you can see, this guy had 2 wives, which was a very big deal that we will talk about in a second. With his first wife, he had Fëanor, our number 1 guy, who was very, very important. And he has 4 more kids with his second wife. Here's one person that you may know if you are only familiar with like the Lord of the Rings and stuff. She is also the only one who lived past the first age of all of these people, of the ones who did go back to Middle Earth. But we will cross that bridge when we come to it. Need to breathe a little bit, man. So let's talk about Fëanor. He's very important. He has problems, issues even. His first issue is that his mom is actually dead, or like as dead as an elf can be, because she basically has like the elven equivalent of dying in childbirth, even though it again depends on the version that you are reading, if she died right after he was born or she actually still got to raise him. But either way, this little guy, Fëanor, is just so full of power, basically, that giving birth to him was just so draining for her that she lays down and her spirit leaves her body and her spirit goes to the Halls of Mandos and refuses to come back out. The Halls of Mandos is like the elven afterlife, very simply said. So the thing is, the dad of Fëanor, after his wife died, and he was very sad about it, he did remarry though. And Fëanor was still obviously his favorite child. He did commit favoritism, terribly so. But Fëanor was still like, why did you get a new wife and new kids? You don't love me anymore, Dad. So we will keep in mind, important for the rest of the story, that Fëanor does not like his half-siblings. Not at all. He has big problems with them. But, because I cannot shut up, this is the image that we get in the Silmarillion from Fëanor. To be fair, in other versions, mainly the Shibboleth of Fëanor, my favorite text ever, makes him a little bit more relatable, understandable. First off, we have to keep in mind that his mom died in the immortal realm. There's no grief counseling. He has a uniquely shitty experience that few people can probably relate to. Secondly, this whole thing that his dad remarried was very complicated because Valinor is like so strictly monogamous that this is the first time anyone ever wanted to remarry. And what they decided was, okay, we're very, very monogamous, so you are only allowed to be married to one alive person. Which means, if you decide to marry your second wife, then that means that your first wife, who is currently in the afterlife, is not allowed to come back. To be fair, she didn't want to come back, but if she ever changed her mind, she would not be able to do so. So by marrying a second wife, he condemned his first wife to definitely stay dead, which, I think makes it a little bit more understandable, but Fëanor was pissed about that, and that he turned out like that. Look, he can spin. And this was from what you just heard was from the Power Metal album again. And the screenshot is from the same rock opera that I showed you before, but this is from more of a live action thing that they did that does have English subtitles, and it's great, and I will link it below. So more about Fëanor's character. Here we have from the book that says he is not very gentle, he's proud, hot-tempered, and opposition to his will, he met with fierce resentment. He probably started off a little bit more chill and became more and more unhinged and entitled throughout the years. He definitely became more absorbed in his works throughout the years, and at some point his wife, Nordinel, could not put up with this bullshit anymore. She did manage to put some common sense in him, which is a great, that is, nobody else managed to do that, but not forever, and at some point they became estranged, and she basically moved back in with her parents. I like to think that he was a good dad, though, at least in the beginning, because, like, nobody else had that many kids. We remember, this dude had 7 sons. No other elf in recorded history had that many damned kids. So I sure hope that he liked kids. As we can see as well, because I said that he became super absorbed in his work, he could become wholly absorbed in his works of the finest skill, but he left many things unfinished. Thank God for ADHD. Otherwise, he would have probably created even more items that made nothing but chaos. Now, when I say items that cause nothing but chaos, what am I talking about? Well, time to read the real protagonists of this damned book, the Silmarils. The Silmarils are 3 gems that Feanor has made. He has made them out of the light of the 2 trees. It's not really, like, probably, I don't know, it's not directly explained how he made them, and I think that's nice. It makes them more mysterious and kind of, like, more fairy tale-like. And it honestly doesn't matter what they do exactly. I mean, they are the prettiest shit ever, and you have to be worthy to hold them because the Valar, like, made them holy and stuff. But the important thing is that everybody wants them. They are the MacGuffin of all time. The important thing is that everybody wants to get their hands on these shiny rocks. Okay. We got the shiny rocks, we got Fanart, we got all of the groundwork laid out. Let's just revisit what we know now. So, number 1, Melkor, the devil, is imprisoned. Good. Very nice. Second, there's many kinds of elves. There's some elves that remained in Middle-earth. The ones that you have to know about are the Sindar. And there are elves that have made it to Aman. There we have the Vanyar, who are like I said, the Golden Boys. They're the closest to the Valar. There is that subgroup of the Teleri, who are called the Falmari, who are really into the sea and the ocean. Hey-ho. And the Noldor, the problem children, who will cause all of the problems. First and foremost, Feanor, who is a prince of the Noldor, and he has created the Silmarils. But he has also created other things, by the way. He has also created Tengwar. What is that? It's that writing system that you see everywhere, that elvish script that is called Tengwar, and Feanor made that up. He also made the Palantiri, these ones, pondering the orb. He also made those. He's also on a personal crusade against the letter S, but it's unfortunately not important right now, which is sad. And he also doesn't like his half-siblings. Keep that in mind. Feanor does not like his half-siblings. And Melkor sure isn't planning to do anything malicious. Don't worry about it. So, see, this has been the groundwork. This has been our first session. I hope you enjoyed. Tune in next time, as Melkor ruins everything, and Feanor ruins everything because Melkor ruined everything, but only because Melkor ruined everything first. Like, it's not his fault, definitely. Anyway. Do you like my outro? It has flames.